Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are discussing the AFC and NFC championship games from the 2025 season of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So as I said, we're going to cover those two games in great detail and then preview Week 22, the league championship game coming up. And then we will talk about an updated draft order, which is now almost complete except for the final two teams. And we will cover any new extensions that have been proposed or rejected. There's a single week left after this one, so there are a few pending ones that could still be resolved. We'll go over all of that. And then today's feature, we are announcing the members of the Pro Bowl for both conferences, as well as winners of the postseason awards. So that's offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year, Player of the Year, League MVP, and then our two user awards, which are Coach and GM of the Year. So I hope you'll stick around for that. But right now, let's go ahead and get started. On the AFC side, it was a fourth consecutive AFC championship for the Denver Broncos as they defeated Miami 34-13. Denver got started right on their very first drive, going 68 yards in 9 plays, with 7 of them running plays. Hugh Kahn breaking it off for 20 yards at the big play of the drive, and then Peter London running it in from 2 yards out for the first score of the game. Later in the second quarter, Denver drove to the Miami 17-yard line, but a holding call and then an 8-yard sack put them all the way back to the 35, where they ended up punting, so it was still 7-0 at that point. And then on their next drive, Denver drove to the Miami 15, but missed a field goal. So despite 3 great drives, Denver was leading just 7-0 going into halftime. Early in the third quarter, Hugh Kahn had an 87-yard punt return touchdown. They missed the extra point, though, so Denver was up 13-0 at that point. Miami then responded, getting on the board for the first time, with Hammonds finding Lawrence Sanders for a big 10-yard completion on 3rd and 10, and then a 23-yard completion later. Sellers ran it for a 26-yard gain, and then Hammonds passed to Greg Sellers for a 2-yard touchdown, bringing it within 1 score. But Denver would score right back, with Peter London finding Raymond Stelly for 14 and 15-yard gains, and then his tight end Carmine Rhodes for a 2-yard touchdown, bringing the lead back to 20-7. On the next drive, on a 3rd and 5 from Miami, Hammonds found Sellers again for a 6-yard gain, but Sellers was stripped of the ball, and Denver recovered in Miami territory. Then Cooper McGuff ran it for a 28-yard touchdown for a quick 27-7 score, and Denver was able to mostly coast through the fourth quarter. Peter London had 3 total touchdowns, but the big story was Dean Hammonds being sacked 10 times, all from the Denver defensive linemen. So Denver getting a lot of great pressure from that front 4, making it hard for the Miami offense to get started. Hammonds had a pretty solid game, 232 yards, a touchdown, no picks. The one Dolphins giveaway came from that Sellers fumble after a short reception. But really, the Denver defense, with all those sacks and pressures, making it so Miami could never really get started, and that let Denver's proficient running game kind of rule the day. So Denver wins 34-13, goes to their 4th consecutive championship game, and in search of their 2nd league title. On the NFC side, we had an absolutely wild game between Washington and Carolina. This one had stats absolutely all over the place, constant action. You know, you could go get a snack and 3 touchdowns have been scored. So, very first drive, right off the bat, Link finds Fernando Owens for a 36-yard gain. Big chunk play led to a field goal. Washington then immediately drove to the Carolina 6-yard line, but Michael Barrera got a big sack of Morrison to end that threat. Washington got a field goal as well. Andrej Harris returned the ensuing kickoff to the Washington 36-yard line, but Link threw an interception to Randy Espino on the 10 to kill that drive and deny them again of a touchdown. Then Morrison found tight end Randy Wright for a 39-yard gain, then a 13-yard gain. Ultimately, Stephen Tabbert ran it in from 11 yards out for the first touchdown of the game, making it 10-3. Again, Carolina had a great return. Samuel Frazier returned the kickoff to the Washington 15, but Carolina still just got a field goal out of that great special teams play. But their defense responded in the second quarter. Morrison was picked by Zach Trowick and returned to the Washington 11-yard line. 2 plays later, Link found Russell Barnes for a 3-yard touchdown and tied it at 13. Later, Carolina kicked another field goal to take their first lead of the game, but Randy Espino returned the ensuing kickoff 90 yards for a touchdown. Sorry, it was tied at 16 after Carolina kicked their field goal, and then Espino made it 23-16. But Carolina got the ball back, immediately drove down the field, linked to Russell Barnes for 41, leading to a Kelvin Dupree 11-yard touchdown run to tie it at 23. Washington immediately, in just 4 plays, drove 67 yards, Morrison finding rookie JaVale Nee for an 8-yard touchdown. So that made it 30-23 just at the half, already over the 50-point mark, and that would continue for the rest of the game. In the third quarter, Espino had his second return touchdown, this one a 70-yard punt return touchdown. That made it 40-23, Washington's lead at that point. He would return another punt in the third quarter to the Carolina 48-yard line. 6 plays later, 2-yard touchdown run made it 47-23 Washington. And then later, after after Sam Frazier intercepted Morrison, Carolina found themselves faced with a 4th and 5. Which Link bombed it to Russell Barnes for a 40-yard touchdown for that fourth down conversion. But then going into the fourth quarter, Washington had a killer 11-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, ending with Morrison finding Enrico Gonzalez for a 7-yard touchdown. They kicked off, and Samuel Frazier returned that kickoff 98 yards for a touchdown, making the score 57-40 at that point. Morrison threw another interception to Frazier. Link hit Russell Barnes again for a 30-yard gain. But at the Washington 22-yard line, Link threw another interception, this one to Lucio Escarcega, to end that drive without points as well. They would force Washington to punt. Frazier would return that punt 80 yards to the Washington 3-yard line, and then Link would find Marco Thompson for a passing touchdown. They went for 2 and got it, so it was a 9-point game, 57-48. On the ensuing drive, on a critical 3rd and 11, Morrison found Randy Wright again for 34 yards, a critical conversion that led to Jeffrey Leon's 6th field goal of the day. So it was 60-48 at that point. Carolina's next drive ended with Link getting sacked by Robert Miller to force a punt. And then on their final drive, Link was intercepted on the Washington 40-yard line, leaving us with the final score of 60-48, leaving Washington with their second conference championship in 4 years. They are also in pursuit of their second league title. Every statistic about this game is wilder than the last. 11 total touchdowns, 10 total field goals. Jeffrey Leon was 6 of 6, including a 57-yarder. I think he had 3 over 50 yards. 13 sacks, 7 turnovers, 108 punts, 108 points, 7 punts, and 3 special teams touchdowns, including a 4th that was stopped at the 3-yard line. So when all is said and done, when all the stats were totaled up, Commanders 60-48 victory in one of the wildest, most big play friendly games I think the Pro Sim has ever seen. Whew. All right, so that leaves us with a rematch of our first championship game next Sunday with number 2 Denver going up against number 1 Washington. Washington prevailed in their first matchup. Then Denver found themselves in a title game against the Rams the next year, which they won. And then they lost to Dallas last year. So Denver, again, both teams pursuing their second championship in 4 years. Washington is their second appearance in this game. Denver, their fourth in a row. Adding Carolina and Miami to the current draft order, we get Carolina at 29 and Miami at 30. So the Denver pick, which is owned by Arizona, will go at either 31 or 32, depending on the outcome of this final game of the season, and then Washington's course as well. And again, we have a top 10 trade with Cincinnati and the Jets, which has not yet gone through. Presumably will go through at the beginning of the league year, but is noted here because the teams have agreed to it. So again, this was our second to last week to offer extensions to existing veterans. So some current deals that were accepted. A lot of these are from the original draft class of 2022, including Junior Ogba of the Green Bay Packers, getting an extension. 28-year-old Enrique Rodriguez of Indianapolis is coming back. A big contract for Luis Van Slyke of the Chiefs, getting with a value of about 15 for his services. So some big wins for tight ends. But the biggest win has got to be for young cornerbacks, as Miami and Jeremy Moreland have finally agreed to terms for value of around 18. I believe the stated number was an average annual value of about $8 million each for 4 years. So a big contract for Moreland. And high demands for cornerbacks in the future. And then finally, Washington's defensive end Philip Calhoun has agreed to terms with the team for a value of about 12. Couple of young cornerbacks who are still negotiating. Elijah Ellis working with the Colts on what his deal will be, and then a very similar player, Joe Perez, with the Packers, will be walking away and will be entering free agency. So we will see if he made the right decision and what kind of contract he will be able to see on the open market. Again, next week we'll have one more round of extension offers, and then everyone who has declined their offer or has not been offered will be entering the free agent pool for 2026 when that season starts. But the big news today is that the votes are in, and we finally get to announce our teams for the Pro Bowl. So a couple of quick notes before we start unveiling names. Players here are listed by their primary listed position. Going forward, we're going to look at snap counts to make sure that players that play out of position get registered in that correct position. So you might see a couple of odd results as players who played out of position or at a secondary position are listed at their primary. This will be the last year for that. A couple other things. We are back down to a group of about 44 names, which is what the actual NFL uses. In the past, the rosters were a little bit bigger. That was an oversight on my part. We are still honoring all those old Pro Bowl nominations, but we're getting back down to the exact number that the real league uses. And in that vein, if you see parentheses by a player's name, that is the number of Pro Bowls that they have been to. So if name with no number, this is their first Pro Bowl. If you see a number, this is their second or longer trip. And you can see that based on their number. But enough ado. Starting with the AFC backfield, your Pro Bowlers for the American Football Conference. At quarterback, Dean Hammonds making his second appearance from Miami. Peter London for Denver with his third. And for the first time, Miguel Aguilera joining the Pro Bowl as well from the Chargers. At running back, we have Juan Mora of the Cleveland Browns with his third appearance, joined by David Taylor and Hugh Kahn of Denver. And for fullback, Ryan Johnson making his fourth appearance in his fourth year in the league at fullback for the Texans. At wide receiver in the AFC, we have Kenny White and James Blank, both returning for yet another trip to Hawaii. And then newly this year, Donald Kelly of Buffalo and Noe Morales of the New England Patriots. So strong performance from the AFC East, landing 3 receivers. And then at tight end, Sebastian Moore and John Hendrickson, both very familiar with the Pro Bowl at this point, getting their third nomination each. On the offensive line, we have Javier Barber for the Jets, Elijah Rader for the Texans, and Richard Ferris of the Cincinnati Bengals joining the team. At guard, 2 more Jets, David Mousseau and David McNeil, with Wayne Jones of Baltimore joining in there as well. And then at center, Walter Aerosmith of the Texans, and then Robert Smith of the Browns making his third appearance in the Pro Bowl. Moving now to the defensive side, at end we have Brian Luddy of the Browns, Chad Bruce of Denver is returning, and then Nicholas Sarno of the Vegas Raiders for defensive end. And then at tackle we have Jeffrey Jesse, the league leader for TFLs at Baltimore, David DiGirolamo of the Jets, and Jose Sola of the Tennessee Titans. At linebacker in the AFC on the outside, Anthony Rizzi, Willie Jimenez, both of Pittsburgh, and then Jesus Avalos of the Tennessee Titans. And then inside, Joe Griffin of the Indianapolis Colts as our first-time linebacker, and then Andrew Basque of the Buffalo Bills. So a lot of returning talent here at the linebacker position. In the defensive secondary at cornerback, we have Bryce Torres, Hugo Hernandez, and George Kent, all making their initial appearances. And then with his third trip to the Pro Bowl, Juan Vega, now of the Baltimore Ravens. At free safety, Joshua Johnstone of Tennessee and Timothy Monahan of Vegas. And they will be joined at strong safety by Johnny Wen, making his fourth appearance in 4 years on behalf of the New England Patriots. And newly this year, Jose Gomez Rodriguez of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Special teamers for the AFC, we have kicker Benjamin Ray out of Jacksonville, Daniel Schlabach of the Buffalo Bills, and then Barry Madruga of Cincinnati, who was last year joined as a receiver and now for his first time as a return specialist, joining the Pro Bowl. So congratulations to all of those AFC players for their nominations. On the NFC side, starting at quarterback, we have Philip Avila making his fourth trip, no surprise there. Joseph Garibay of the Green Bay Packers for the first time, nominated from the NFC, and then Jerome Morrison of Washington, his second trip there as well. At running back, Thomas Gezik of Arizona for the third time. We have Michael Fulmer of the Atlanta Falcons, and then returning as well, we had a tie here, I believe, with Clayton McGee and Stephen Tabbert, both just qualifying. They were tied, so they will both be going for their second trip. And then at fullback, Clement Carr of the Green Bay Packers returns as well. At receiver, we have Scott Baldwin of the Rams, Terrence Hoffman of the Seahawks, Christopher Lee of the Cowboys, and Fernando Owens of the Carolina Panthers, all making return trips, all from very prolific passing offenses. And then at tight end, Ramek Phelps going for the first time for the Packers, and then Kerry Slomba for the Rams, his third trip there. On the offensive line for the NFC, Oscar Martinez, tied for the highest overall in the league, so no surprise that he is back for his third trip. He'll be joined for the first time by Robbie Stewart of San Francisco and Kevin Escobar of Dallas. In the interior at guard, we have Paul Caruso returning, William Greer is returning, and then for the first time, Joseph Bordewick, also of San Francisco, coming as well. And then at center, two new names, Randy Harrell of the Eagles and Kenneth Eggleston of the Panthers. Moving to the defense, on the defensive end, we have Stephen Poirier of the Detroit Lions, Brett McPhail of the Saints making his fourth trip in rare company there, and then James Kiger, now of Washington, qualifying for the first time. And then at tackle, this was a phenomenal group, one of, I think, the best statistically in the entire league, these NFC defensive tackles. So no surprise that we're getting a little bit extra here with Michael Cuevas of the Eagles and Robert Monzel, and then just qualifying by tying and both going together, Marcus Searles of Minnesota, and then Stephen Kapfhammer of Carolina making his third trip. At linebacker for the NFC, we have Carl Rosania of the Atlanta Falcons, Mark Soto of the Eagles is coming back, and then for the first time, Benjamin Hanbury of the Packers is coming as well. Inside, we have Samuel Bronson of the 49ers and Christopher Pratt of the Vikings, both returning to the Pro Bowl. For our defensive backs, at cornerback, Samuel Frazier is making his third trip. For the Panthers, Jason Bumbarger of the Rams for the first time, Randy Espino of the Commanders, and Kenneth Wheat of the Saints, both returning as well. At free safety, two new names, Jacob Carlin of Detroit and John Gordon of San Francisco will be the NFC's representatives. And then at strong safety, Roy Bass of Carolina, and then we have yet another tie in the NFC side, Calvin Preston of the Bears returning for his third trip, along with newcomer Juan Goldberg of the Detroit Lions. And our specialists at the NFC, we have kicker Jeffrey Leon, very prolific this season. Robert Richbow of the Detroit Lions is returning, our first specialist to return this year. And then, no surprise, the human cheat code himself, Randy Espino of the Washington Commandos, returning as the return specialist for the NFC. So, congratulations to all of those players. We have 88 players representing 30 different NFL teams invited to the Pro Bowl. Very excited. Everyone should be thrilled about these performances. Congratulations particularly to Carolina and Washington for both having 6 players nominated, most of every team. The Packers offense had the most of any team on a single side of the ball, with 4 representatives from the offense. And then congratulations to the Jets offensive line for having the most players from a single unit, with a tackle and both starting guards being nominated. So once again, congratulations to all of those players and teams for their performances this year. With that said, now it is time to announce our Players of the Year, starting with the rookies. There was a great three-member race on the Offensive Rookie of the Year. But ultimately, with 17 votes, including 9 first-place votes, the winner is Mitchell Reynolds of the Indianapolis Colts. With how strong rushing has been this year, it's only fitting that a running back wins this award. Reynolds had 1,725 rushing yards as a rookie this season, over 2,100 total yards from scrimmage, including 18 total touchdowns, leading the Colts to a playoff berth. So congratulations to Reynolds and the Indianapolis Colts, Offensive Rookie of the Year. On the defensive side, there were 2 names that stuck out to a lot of people, but definitely a strong first place emerged with 18 votes, including 11 first-place votes. The winner is Denver Litton, defensive tackle for the New York Jets. Fantastic season for Litton. 84 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, and 15 sacks in the center of that line. Fantastic performance for Litton and a well-earned Rookie of the Year honor. Moving now to all players, the Offensive Player of the Year, I called this midseason, so I think it's no surprise, is Dean Hammonds of the Miami Dolphins. This season was marked by a lot of rushing yards and a lot of passing interceptions, and Hammonds defied both of those. 5,856 yards, 46 touchdowns, only 15 interceptions, better than a 3-to-1 ratio, easily best in the league. Dean Hammonds is your Offensive Player of the Year. As for the Defensive Player of the Year, congratulations go to Michael Cuevas of the Philadelphia Eagles, who gained 12 votes, including 8 first-place votes, with 99 tackles, 41 tackles for loss, and a league-leading 22 sacks. Cuevas is your Defensive Player of the Year. Also, I forgot to mention for Dean Hammonds, 16 votes for Hammonds, including 11 first-place votes. So, strong performances for all 4 of these players, and strong support for being named our Players of the Year. Which leaves us with only one more player-oriented award, and is the Most Valuable Player. And I think looking at these, it shouldn't be a surprise that the league MVP for this year is Dean Hammonds, quarterback of Miami. Again, just an absolutely standout year, regardless of context, but particularly looking at the interceptions that were thrown this year and the strength of the running game, that Hammonds was able to really lead that team all the way to the AFC Championship game, including the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Huge credit to Hammonds as a player, and I think duly recognized as the league MVP for 2025. So lastly today, we have our 2 user awards for Coach and GM of the Year. So starting with Coach, with 9 votes, including 5 first-place votes, your Coach of the Year is Liberator for the Miami Dolphins. Again, as I said, for Dean Hammonds, phenomenal performance by the Dolphins, number 1 overall seed in the AFC, and a great performance by Hammonds, and just turning the league on its head. An honor well earned for performance with the Miami Dolphins this year. And then for GM of the Year, with 10 votes, including 7 first place votes, Jambo of Carolina. Again, an honor well earned. Carolina's really built that team up from the ground up, according to Jambo and Sarge's vision. And that's only made possible by the great moves they've made, the trades, and then the drafting. So huge credit to Jambo on Carolina's continued success. And congratulations again to both users. So that is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Join us next week for our final show of 2025. We'll cover the championship game and the final extension news. We'll go over some things like the off-season schedule, especially with the new free agency, syncing every day, blind bidding, the draft, all of that. We'll kind of lay out the path for the next 6 weeks of the off-season. We will continue the show in the off-season. Instead of game coverage, we'll be talking about free agency, looking at contracts and signings that have happened there. Obviously, everything draft-related, pro days, combines, other draft speculation. The NFL schedule will be released here in a few weeks. We'll have a video about that. So lots still to dive into as we work our way through the off-season, up to and including the draft. So yeah, as the 2026 offseason kicks off, more videos to come, but that is it for today. So I will sign off, as I do every show, by saying to all users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.